when you think about all the time you've spent with your oldest in the outdoors, do you see a lot of glimpses of how much the outdoors just helped him in life with his ability to solve problems, think creatively on his own, kind of like self-reliant, self-starter stuff that's been kind of formed just spending that much time outside with you?
Oh, I think so. I mean, I think
Jason Matzinger is a father and one of the most respected voices in the hunting industry. As the creator and host of Into High Country, Jason has built a reputation for doing things the right way, pursuing wild game with grit, integrity, and a deep respect for the animal and the places that they live. He is not just a hunter, he is a storyteller. Through his films and conservation-driven mindset, Jason brings people into the backcountry and reminds us what it means to earn every inch, both physically and mentally. A lifelong Montana resident, he embodies the mountain athlete mindset, pushing limits, embracing hardship, and finding purpose in the pursuit. So Jason, welcome to the MTNTOUGH Podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's always kind of humbling to hear something like that read.
It's pretty wild how long you've kind of been at it. You've been at it a long time.
The years have definitely added up. Yeah, it doesn't feel like it. I mean, just like everything in life, the old cliche saying, time flies when you're having fun. But looking back at it, yeah, we're editing season 17 now of Into High Country.
That's wild.
It is.
And you were into film before that, though, correct?
Yeah, I did DVDs and, produced some of that kind of stuff before doing the TV show, but it was a pretty fast trajectory. I kind of got thrown under the bus. I mean, honestly, when I first started the TV show, I barely knew how to edit at all. I mean, I was scrambling, watching how-to DVDs and staying up late at night on my computer because I just didn't want the opportunity to chase my dream to slip away, so.
Yeah, that was before everything was on YouTube, so you had to figure it out a different way.
Yeah, for sure. And at the time, it was right when everything was going from like analog to digital too, and the frame size was changing from like 4:3 to 16:9, so the pictures of all the older videos I had taken didn't match the new widescreen format, and it was all very confusing in the beginning.
Man. Did you kind of create your first series of DVDs right out of high school?
Pretty much, yeah. Me and a guy named Tyler Jonerson partnered up, and we started a film company called Cleveland Films, which was Live Elk backwards. Is how we came up with that name. And so, yeah, we just went wide open right out of high school, chasing lions, filming all our buddies' hunts, and throwing little film festivals downtown. And that's kind of the early days of it all.
Man, yeah, now you're multiple decades in the industry. It's pretty wild.
It is. It's pretty humbling. Met a lot of good people and had some great adventures.
Mm-hmm. The countless adventures that you guys have had. I mean, that's the big part of it, is from all the fall hunts and spring hunts and, shed hunting and turkey hunting. You stack that up over 10, 15, 20, 25 years. The amount of adventure out there is incredible.
For sure. I drive across the state and, sometimes I feel like I drive my kids nuts or my girlfriend or whoever it may be, because I can point it just about everywhere and tell them a story, and I kind of forget who I told the same stories to, and they hear them over and over.
That's a good dad move for sure.
Yeah, a lot of good memories, and it's totally transformed too, having the kids there. So brings it to a whole nother level now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you kind of think about things differently, the moves you're making, what they're watching you do while you're out there, you kind of really look at the things you can teach them while you're out there more seriously, make the most of your time. And instead of just, when it's just me or me and a friend, you don't look at things like that so much. You just go through the motions and you try to accomplish the goal, But with kids, it's like, what can I teach them about this stock or setting up this camp? And, why do we do it the way we do? So, it's been good.
So many lessons in there too. And that's one of the things I wanted to unpack is, you being a father and being a father of two boys. We were just chatting before hit and record, and your oldest being a senior and, maybe transitioning away soon to college, or who knows where he will end up. And then, your youngest being 12, the limited amount of time that you actually have with your children as a dad in the outdoors is shocking. It's just shocking, like going through that myself as a father. My oldest daughter's 13 and my youngest is 11, but it feels like I was just at the Bozeman hospital the other day having them both delivered. Like it actually feels like I was just there. And to have 13 years go by, and then from the outdoor perspective, we were spending a lot of time with them when they were little, as you were, but then it takes a certain level of maturity before they're actually like a hunting partner with you. And that's kind of around that, that 9 and 10 age range. And then they're kind of like your hunting partner, but 10 to 18 goes by in like a vapor. It is crazy fast. And I'm excited to dive into that with you and just kind of get your feeling on how much that's helped kind of turn your boys into men, and like the manhood components that happen in the outdoors. But then I think, big picture, how do listeners across the country do that same thing? And then big picture, are we feeling good about the next couple generations and their ability to do that with where the outdoors is headed? I've noticed that if the gear you're using isn't reliable, it's much easier to back off early and quit. GoRuck's products hold up, and at Mountain Tough, rucking has become an essential aspect of our programming. Rucking combines cardio and resistance training, burning up to 3 times more calories than regular walking while strengthening your joints with very little impact. It also boosts VO2 max, bone density, and it makes it an efficient, science-backed way to improve overall fitness. The Rucker 4.0 is purpose-built for rucking, featuring elevated plate pockets to keep weight high and stable reinforced construction. GoRuck is offering 20% off their products for Mountain Tough Podcast listeners. All you need to do is use code Mountain Tough Community. That's MTNTOUGH Community when checking out at GoRuck.com. All right, back to work.
Well, I can say, when I first started hunting with my boys, my first son, it was a little frustrating at first because I had in my mind the way that I always wanted his first hunt to go and the way that I had pictured it for years. And, right from the get-go, it just wasn't going that way for whatever reason, And so the thing that I learned right from the get-go was, you got to really not think so big when you're taking your kids out there. They don't need to do that 10-mile hike to feel satisfied. Mm-hmm. They don't have to find the biggest animal on the mountain. Really, they're just happy to be there with you and spending time. And along the way, they learn those things that drive us to become hunters, But it really starts with just them wanting to spend time with Dad, doing what he loves, because they can see the passion in you, mm-hmm. and they want to experience that, And through the years of taking them, I've just seen them evolve through the process from not understanding how to even use wind checker to begin with, and how important the wind is just kind of one key element, or how you use the cover or travel in low spots, or all the things we take for granted.
Mm-hmm.
You really have to just start with square one with them. And they soak it up, and you build those building blocks right from the get-go, and the next thing you know, you do have that son that's hiking alongside you with very similar goals to you, that can keep up, that understands the game. You don't have to tell him everything, and it does go quick. I mean, my oldest boy had a really good rifle bull tag this year, and I was like, man, this is just going to be a dream. And it actually was some of the funnest days of rifle hunting I've ever had in my life. The first 3 days of rifle season, the elk were still screaming like it was mid-September. We were seeing some good bulls. We found one he really wanted to go after. And then life just kind of got in the way as far as really having time to soak it up like I wanted to.
Yeah.
From winter formal dances to... He was playing varsity football at the time, and his football team was doing really good, and just getting pulled in a lot of directions. And so you look at this season on a great tag, and it really came down to we had about 5 days to make it happen, and he never did get a bull. He had opportunities, but I guess my point through that is if that would have been his first year hunting, we probably would have shot, the first nice bull we saw. But fast forward to he's a senior in high school and gets this tag. He understands the opportunity now through the time spent with me, through seeing, how we approach it. And he passed probably 20 plus bulls in those first 3 days just looking for that next caliber. And he wasn't upset that he didn't kill a bull. He was upset he didn't have more time to hunt for the one he wanted,
Yeah.
So and I'm really proud of that. Like, I feel like when we were young, what I remember, like my dad's friends judging, not judging, but when you would get back from a hunt, they'd look in the back and they'd go, no blood on the tailgate today, And so it kind of instilled that, like, what made a successful hunt was just killing something, for us when we were younger. And I've taught my boys, like, why I only like to hunt older age class animals, because it's a management strategy and it's very healthy for the animals we're hunting. And if everybody went out and shot just whatever they wanted to, it would really be detrimental on these herds. So it's a nice balance of people that go out there and hunt the mature animals and the people that go out and are hunting for the first time and taking what they want. We need those different levels of kind of stages of a hunter,
Yeah.
So it's cool that my kids are young, but they still really understand, like, well, he's a nice buck, but he just looks young in the face. He could really turn into something.
Yeah.
And
That's cool.
And so it's really, they just soak up everything you teach them. They're listening and they're watching even when you don't think they are.
When you think about all the time you've spent with your oldest in the outdoors, do you see a lot of glimpses of how much the outdoors just helped him in life with his ability to solve problems, think creatively on his own, kind of like self-reliant, self-starter stuff that's been kind of formed just spending that much time outside with you?
Oh, I think so. I mean, I think patience is a really big thing hunting teaches kids. You can't hunt in a hurry. It's impossible. You can't force it. You have to be patient to be a hunter. And I think that's the biggest things kids take away right off the bat is, it doesn't really matter if I complain, if I'm impatient, if I try to hurry it along, it's not going to change the course of what's going to happen. And I really think that alone in life is just so huge. Like, you don't always get what you want.
Mm-hmm.
But if you keep working at it, you're gonna find what you're after, you know. But it's not always when you want it. And I think that's important for kids to know, because especially in today's day and age where everything is at their fingertips, learning patience and you don't always get what you want is important to building boys into men, men that are respected and have respect for the things around them, you know?
Yeah, it's a instant gratification world out there right now, more so than ever before, and that's only increasing with each day. The DoorDash generation
Right.
that we're in, that all goes away when you're out in the outdoors, and you can't force anything. It's all authentic, and it teaches you a lot there for sure.
Yeah, and I just had the conversation with my youngest the other day. He took his second mule deer through the youth apprentice program, and we got some of the breakfast sausage back, and he wanted to cook me breakfast, so he made mule deer breakfast sausage and eggs, and we sat down and had that breakfast. And I just told him, I said, "Bud, I'm really proud of you for this whole process. You made a great shot on the deer. You helped me break down the deer, get it in the cooler, took care of the meat, and now you cooked me your own mule deer, and it tastes so great, and you've went full circle with it." And I said, "I'll bet you not a lot of kids at your school understand that, the circle of life, like you do. And I bet not a lot of kids are cooking their dad's breakfast from the deer they took." And I think hunters have always been the strongest members of society. And I think that building hunters in today's society is no different. They're going to be the members that are going to rise above. They're going to be the ones that people are going to look to when times get tough. They're leaders. They're problem solvers. And the kids that aren't out there learning those skills, that do get the DoorDash, that watch everything through YouTube and don't get their hands dirty, when times get tough, they really don't have those fundamental skills to problem solve, keep a calm mind, move on, make smart decisions, and come out winning. It's little things like changing a tire. I know some kids that are my son's age that don't know how to change a tire, seniors in high school, boys in Montana. And that's just it's nothing against the way those boys are raised. It's just not the way I want to raise my boys. I like knowing that they can take care of themselves if I don't get back to camp for 5 extra hours because I killed the bull, or something happened or whatever. I know that they can get the fire going. They know where the food is. They know how to cook it. They know everything they need to do to be fine until they can get help.
Yeah, that self-reliant mentality.
Yeah. And also just being around ranching is a big thing too. My oldest boy, his mom's family is a big cattle ranch family in the Shields Valley. And, that way of life also is, I think, is just a great way to raise boys around the ranch, the farm equipment, fixing everything yourself, not taking it to a mechanic. And I'm guilty of it. That's actually one thing that I wished I would have done differently when I was growing up, was pay a little more attention to like mechanics, because I'm not the best when it comes to like my truck breaking down. But my boy, my oldest son, he just changed the brakes for me on my truck.
He'll figure it out. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Mountain Ops supplements keep you going steady. I've personally been on their Yeti pre-workout for clean energy without jitters, and their Hydrate to stay topped off during long days when you need those electrolytes. Creatine and protein are a staple for me for building and bouncing back. Plus, they have no junk, just real fuel. It's simple, reliable stuff that helps you push when it counts. Get 20% off Mountain Ops supplements at mountainops.com using code MOUNTAINTOUGH. That's MTNTOUGH. All right, now back to work. When you think about your hunting viewers all over the country and the world, and listeners and people that have young boys out there that are living in Louisiana or Florida or California, all these different states where maybe they don't have the access to the Western public land lifestyle that we are so blessed with. How do you encourage some of those guys in what they do with like their boys as they're growing up?
Well, I've only ever lived in Bozeman my entire life, so I'm speaking of what I feel like I would do if I was there. And I hunt Ohio. I've been to Texas. I've been around the United States hunting, and there's opportunities where you look for them. I've hiked some beautiful trails in Ohio, even though where I hunt might only be a 40-acre chunk. You can't go on the big, grand mountain adventures out there, sure, but I think when it comes to taking your kids, like I said, to bring it back to the beginning, I know I thought too big in the beginning when I took my kids out there. I thought that they needed to experience these big, grand adventures right off the bat, and really it's not like that. My boys talk about one time, it was New Year's Eve, and we were just kind of bored. They had gotten some GoPros for Christmas, and I had gotten like a Jetboil or something like that. And so we just hiked barely up one of the trails, like not far at all, and got off to the side of the trail and cooked a mountain house and started a fire. And they talk about that to this day. And that was probably 8 years ago, and they still talk about that. And that was not a big hike. It wasn't a hunt. It literally, they thought cooking their meal on that Jetboil in a mountain house or a Peaks refuel, whatever it was, that blew their mind.
Dang,
they thought
so simple.
Yeah, they thought that was the coolest thing. And to this day, they still love that experience of going out and just cooking a meal. So we might even just do a day hike, but I'll take that Jetboil and I'll cook them a meal, and that it's a game changer. So that's just an example, I think, of, it doesn't always have to be this, we get the big one at the end of the hunt kind of thing. It really is, like I said, just being able to recognize sort of the opportunities you have, where you're at and the time you have, and just trying to maximize it. Fishing, fishing is a big one. My boys love to fish, and that's something that's so easy to do, and you can typically find places to do that around the country.
Yeah.
But even, I remember setting up the tent in my backyard when I was little and just doing a summer night of camping, just sleeping under the stars, and I still remember that. So keeping it simple and just using the ability to show them the little aspects of what you do when you do go on those grand adventures, whether it be cooking with the Jetboil, rolling the tent up and putting it back in the bag, which we all know is usually a challenge.
Yeah.
Just little things like that. They remember it. It sticks, and it's something that goes a long ways when it does come time to take them on, maybe their big first hunt.
Oh, yeah.
Or their first time out west. Or
those little skills just start stacking as skills of an outdoorsman, for sure.
Yeah. I've been fixated on watching Alone lately. I've been just binge watching it because I never really watched it when it first came out. And you really see what some of the simple things those people do out there to last longer than other people. They're not the big major moves. It's not killing a moose. It's not the things you would think would keep people out there longer. It's really the little things, and the smarts and keeping your head. And so, yeah, just building those little building blocks one at a time, starting fire, making kindling. They sound simple to us, but until you've been shown how to do it, you really don't know. It's like the old saying, you don't know what you don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, starting a fire when it's cold and wet, and with not many supplies, if you haven't done that countless times, it can be a real headache.
Yeah. Just knowing how to stack the wood so that, you can get the most out of that little flame when it starts. Knowing when to blow on the fire, how to blow. Mm-hmm. Too much, too little. It's just, yeah. Kids soak that stuff up. So I guess to bring it full circle with your question for the dads that don't have the big mountain wilderness out their back door, it doesn't take that to build men that have those key fundamental skills to problem solve, keep their head, and come out, better.
How are you feeling about, like, your oldest will kind of go off on his own here pretty soon after graduating senior year, and that'll take him on a grand adventure of life. Who knows where he will wind up, and then your youngest is kind of coming up behind him. With your youngest coming up behind him, how are you feeling about the macro climate of hunting, and specifically of like Western hunting? Are you feeling good about conservation wise, public land wise, are our kids kind of walking into a good situation? Did we set them up with a good situation that like your 12-year-old is going to walk into, and then even his kids? How are you feeling macro wise that the Western hunting climate is looking?
Well, I think we as hunters have done a good job, generally speaking, at managing the herds, recognizing problems where they were, doing the best we can to build up and pay attention to the needs of the wildlife across the West. Just in my lifetime, I've seen conservation organizations pop up, like Rocky Mountain Goat Alliance, specific for these animals, the Wild Sheep Foundation, Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, and working closely with those organizations, I see the numbers. I see the land that Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation has conserved through those years and made into public ground available for us to hunt and recreate on. I've seen the increase in sheep numbers through trap and transplant, the amount of sheep that have come off of Wild Horse Island, how that's replenished herds around the state. I've seen connectivity of wildlife corridors, protected forever for the Mule Deer Foundation, making sure those migration corridors stay intact so the mule deer can move. I think we've done a really good job of recognizing pinyon juniper removal and how that affects vegetation and wildlife on the landscape. What scares me the most is kind of like I was talking about the grizzly bear before we hit record.
Yeah.
Wildlife is being less determined on what makes sense for wildlife and what's better for them. And unfortunately, it's more and more being determined by what's better for us. And that's what I don't like. That's what scares me a little bit. If we continue to let politicians in the ballot box determine the future of wildlife, then we will have failed our kids. But what we've done as hunters to manage it and bring them back, I mean, the grizzly bear is so far over the objective to remove them from the endangered species list. It should be celebrated from the rooftops. America should should just, like I said, just celebrate it. It's a great thing, but because of politics getting in the way, there's still this dark cloud over the grizzly bear. Like, we have something to worry about. Like, it might go away, and it's not. I've talked to the leading biologists, the bear conflict specialists. They are not concerned at all with the future of the grizzly bear unless they stay on the Endangered Species Act. That's the worst possible outcome. And so, to answer your question, I think we as hunters in a hunting community have done a fantastic job at recognizing where the animals need help, bringing the funding in for the animals, setting up things that are better for the herds, better for the landscapes, better for the hunters. But what's going to ruin all that is not listening to the experts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that is interesting because it's connected to your latest project, which I do want to unpack a little bit more because that is super interesting, the work that you're doing and the film that you are creating on the grizzly bear. But that topic and like the political landscape of it seems to be quite connected also to technology. And if we think about technology in the outdoors, there's two ways to think about it. One way would to think about the technologies we're using in the outdoors to help us accomplish our mission, and those technologies can make hunting sometimes easier, and because it's making it easier, it's making it less rewarding, and because it's less rewarding, there could potentially be less of the youth that wants to get involved in that activity. But there's also the second way, and that would be like if you think about technology in the outdoors, and the second way, it is more related to like the algorithm, and the algorithm dividing people in a very significant way over topics that need to have fruitful conversations on that meet in the middle. And like all progress is done in the middle, where two people can explain their side and find a compromise that leads to a solution. But that the algorithm is really making that non-existent, and that's only getting worse every single day. And that's some of what you're seeing, I think, on the Bear Project and the Bear film. And the more that we see that, the more concern I have as well. We started building the MTNTOUGH app from the ground up back in 2016, and we've been refining it ever since with feedback from real hunters, military folks, and everyday grinders. If your training program isn't dialed in, it's just way too easy to back off. The MTNTOUGH app changes that. Daily workouts you can do at home with minimal gear, in the gym or on the road, body weight, kettlebells, whatever you've got. Programs that build endurance and that mental edge you need for tough days or big adventures. Plus, the community keeps you accountable. Thousands of us grinding together. It tracks everything. It integrates with Apple Watch, and new features are being added daily. Listeners here get the 14-day free trial plus an extra month when you sign up with the code MOUNTAINPOD. That's MTNPOD at mountaintough.com. It's worth trying if you want to level up. All right, back to work.
That it's very concerning. I would say the ray of hope that I see is I don't see my son, my oldest one, putting the value into social media like maybe our generation did, seeing it come up, and we watched the growth of it. It was from MySpace to Facebook to Instagram to Twitter, like TikTok, all the stuff. It was the new shiny thing for us. And I look at my son and his friends. I mean, they're on there, but they're not really posting a whole lot. They're not putting a whole lot of weight into how many likes they're getting on a post, that kind of thing. And so that gives me a little bit of hope that maybe we're, just naturally they're kind of over it a little bit, the noise. But to your point, I mean, it is really sad that what social media is doing to people and driving that divider right down the middle. And you watch movies or documentaries like The Social Dilemma. I don't know if you've seen that.
I have, yeah.
It's fascinating, and it just feeds, it makes you believe that everything you think is right, and you can't imagine how nobody else can see it that way. And it's so unhealthy. It is so unhealthy. Even in my documentaries, I love to interview people who don't agree with me because I love to learn why they think the way they do. I want to be better for them too. Like if I'm doing something wrong that's offending a chunk of the world, which hunting is, I want to be better. I want to understand what portion of that is that they don't like and be better. And there's people that believe that having the hunting TV show or having social media or showing it all is not positive for hunting. I believe it is, because I believe that I am always trying to show the messages and talk about the heritage, the conservation, the stuff that's important to keep hunting alive, and to be teaching the next generation why we do what we do. Like, it's not just kill it and grill it. There is a lot of responsibility to being the next generation that's going to look after this wildlife. There's people that think OnX has had a huge factor in like ruining hunting spots. But with the influx of hunters out there, so many more hunters on the landscape, can you imagine if we didn't have OnX? People would just be everywhere. There would be so many landowner-hunter conflicts, and that would also not be good. So, I do think there's a limit to the technology when it comes to hunting that we definitely have to look after. As soon as it's not fair chase, I think that we really need to look at that, what we're doing. And, I kind of went off on a tangent there, I feel like, but you're absolutely right. Like the social media is really, really making it hard to meet in the middle, like you say, where all the good work is done.
Well, I hope we're feeling what you're seeing with your boys, where people are kind of walking away from that and it's less important. There's a couple things that are talked about a lot right now, and one is even non-hunting politics is causing these divides between families that are so strong, where someone's like, I'm not going to my daughter's wedding because she believes this way and I believe this way. So you're seeing extremes like that are driven by that social dilemma concept, that are driven by the algorithm, because they've been fed so much information on that side that they can't imagine the other side. They can't imagine the reality of the other side. And that has gotten strong, where you'll see people skipping weddings, skipping family reunions, divorces happening over items that are popping up politically in the news. And so the algorithm has gotten more and more intense in the last few years, and it's gotten more sophisticated too. It's only learning more.
Yes.
But I have seen the glimmer of hope that you're referring to as well on the other side, where, like my daughter, we've kept phones away from our girls for as long as we possibly could, and that was always like a contentious topic in our house, of like, with my oldest, like, Dad, when can I get a phone? When can I get a phone? When can I get a phone? And I was always pushing back. And recently there's been a conversation of like, I really don't need one yet. I really don't want one. And I was like, how come? And she's like, well, I just see a lot of my friends just stuck on them all the time, and I don't want to do that. So the little glimmers of hope are there, and we've talked about it on this podcast before, but what I really hope is happening, and I pray is happening, is like there was a generation of Americans, like our grandparents' generation, that smoked a lot of cigarettes because they thought it was cool. They thought it was like a style thing. They thought it was actually making them look younger, and it was actually making them healthier. And then all of a sudden, America realized, no, these are really bad for you. And then there was like a generation that made fun of that generation. They're like, hey, they used to smoke like 2 packs a day in cars and airplanes. I can't believe they thought it was good for them. And then most of the smoking generation quit. I hope that is what we're on the edge of right here, like in 2026, is a lot of individuals waking up to how bad certain things were for us. And it feels like we are there, and how that ties into the hunting and the outdoors is going to be really, really critical. And I think like what you're seeing on the grizzly bear thing is a perfect example of how critical it is. It's so critical that we can have fruitful conversations away from the influence of the algorithm to make progress on these issues, to sustain the wildlife for our kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And that's always what's driven me with these films, is kind of searching out areas that need to be talked about where there's no real good information on. Like the last film I did before this one was called Selective, and it was really looking at the history of trophy hunting, how it started, why it started, and, you know, in my opinion, why it's still a beautiful source of wildlife management today. And yeah, with the grizzly bear, it's a fascinating topic. The more I interview people, the more I learn, the more it just opens my eyes to just kind of where we're at right now with wildlife management. And it really has me worried, kind of going back to, we're not really listening to the biologists anymore. You know, it's knocking the wind out of the sails of these people who've dedicated their lives to restoring these populations. And if we can't get them removed off the endangered species list, it just really starts to set a precedent for all the biologists underneath them who are doing work on animals that don't have the attention, or plants, or whatever it may be. And like I told you before the interview, or before this podcast, can you imagine knowing, by the precedents we're setting right now, that you could go into a career and they could tell you, look, you're going to dedicate your life to this and you're going to pour everything you have into it, but you're never going to succeed. Your work will never be celebrated. You'll never win. Mm-hmm. Nobody's going to want to keep signing up for those positions. And so I just feel like we're at a very critical time right now to keep these people motivated, keep the best people in position to make decisions for the wildlife, or we stand to lose a lot of those people who are just going to redirect their focus and attention to something that maybe is a little more rewarding, something that does have an outcome or an end goal, something that's attainable. And, you know, I wouldn't blame them. And I admire those biologists and the people that work in those departments so much that I would just hate to see them and their work not celebrated, because it absolutely deserves to be.
You should give the listeners kind of a high level overview of what the thesis of the grizzly bear film will be. I know that we're a few months yet from it coming out. It'll come out later this year. But what is kind of the story arc of it going to tell from the grizzly bear perspective?
What's up, guys? Dustin here. As you know, good music in the gym for your workouts can change everything. The right music allows you to flip that switch and keep pushing when you need a breakthrough. We've been running the Turtle Box speakers for a while now, And these things are waterproof, tough, loud. These things are built like a tank. The Turtle Box Ranger is great if you're on the move. The original covers most days, and that's what you see around here. And the new Turtle Box Grande puts out some serious volume for big spaces. Check them out at turtleboxaudio.com.
Well, we're really going to start about in 1975 when the grizzly bear was put on the Endangered Species Act, and look at the population numbers there. I've heard so many numbers through these interviews. I think there was like 100. In 1975, there was around 100 and either 36 or 63 grizzlies that they knew about in the greater Yellowstone ecosystem. And the last time they did the count, there's, between 1,000 and 2,000. And that's just in the recovery area. The original objective to get them off of the list was 500. We now know of, in Montana alone, over 2,500 grizzly bears between Glacier and Yellowstone. In fact, I think it's 2,800 that we know of. And that's just in the countable recovery zones. So those are imaginary lines around the national parks where they kind of have to stop and start their counting. But the bears have spread so far out of those recovery zones that there's hundreds and thousands of bears that aren't even being counted. We hear of encounters right outside of Bozeman all year long, or not all year long, all fall long when hunters are out in the woods. You're hearing stories of run-ins and close calls and bears wandering into people's camp. There was a local headline here not a month ago, grizzlies now in the Bridgers. Fish, Wildlife, and Parks has recognized that there's grizzlies in the Bridgers. We knew it was coming all along. They know of grizzlies now in the south end of the Crazies. They know of 3 different bears last time I heard there. And they're just spreading because that's how grizzly bears work. The cup is full is what the FWP tells me. You can't put more water in that cup. That's not the way bears work. So they're spilling out. And so to kind of sum up the film, we're really just going to look at, they've been delisted twice. Why were they relisted? What went on there to get them put back on the list when we were successful in getting them delisted? And then kind of where are we at today and what's the future of that look like? If we are to remain to leave the bears on the Endangered Species Act, what's that going to do for the bears and for all the research that's been done leading up to this point? So really, it's my first film that's not a hunting film. And that excites me. I think it'll allow me the ability to maybe get it in some places where I wasn't able to get a hunting film specific.
Yeah.
I'll always have that hunting as conservation theme to everything I do. But this really is just like, what the heck are we doing here? There is no reason the grizzly bear should still be on the endangered species list. And every expert I've asked them very point blank, what's the best thing that can happen for the bears and what's the worst thing? Worst thing is they stay on the list. Best thing is if they get off. And that's just the opposite of the way the media sets it up. Because they want to do headlines like the second they're delisted, like grizzly is stripped of protection and things like that. And it gives the American public this like, oh my God, they're just going to go out and hunt the grizzly bears now. Well, yeah, we are, but we're going to take less in a hunting season than are struck by cars or euthanized by Fish and Game. There's so many grizzly bears. So really it's just like, I want this film to celebrate the work that those biologists have done as though they're off the list, because they deserve it.
Yeah, they've absolutely crushed the mandate. If the mandate was around 500, they 5x'd the goal, and the 5x'ing the goal still didn't lead to any sort of successful outcome or the ability to pull them off of the list.
Yeah, and so they're going through the motions. They're doing the best they can to continue to provide the data needed to keep pushing this thing forward. And I ask them, do you believe it's going to happen? And I feel like I see doubt in their eyes, but they all say, yeah, I have to. It's my job. I have to believe that's going to happen, or what am I doing? But I can kind of see it in them. They're on the edge of being defeated.
What is keeping grizzly bears on the list? Is it not the population data itself that gets them off the list?
It's not. No, it's almost like the goalposts are always moving. They ask for one set of criteria to be met. They'll meet that criteria, but then, then all of a sudden they need, something else done to meet that criteria. So I think the last thing, I know that genetic connectivity is a huge thing for them. Before they were, and I don't remember the steps that led up to it, but I know what they really needed to see before they can be removed again is genetic connectivity between GYE, Greater Yellowstone Ecosystem, and Glacier, the Northern Continental Divide. So as soon as they can prove that there's DNA there that's moved between somehow, that's the next step. But the Fish and Game is, they're so ready to move this thing forward that they have literally trapped bears from Yellowstone, taken them to Glacier, taken bears from Glacier, brought them to Yellowstone, and they're like, there, we got genetic connectivity.
It's done. Yeah. Yeah. The DNA's there now.
Yeah. So it's just been a number of things. I know wording was a big thing the first time they were put back on the list. Like, into the foreseeable future was a phrase used in the documentation, and nobody could define what the foreseeable future was. Really just things like that.
Yeah.
When the biologists are like, come on, you're only hurting the bears here.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really the goal of the film, is to really just take a deep dive into the recovery of the grizzly bear, where we're at today, where we came from, and really just, raise my hat to all the people that have worked so hard to bring the bears where they are today, because it is an amazing success story.
It's incredible. Yeah.
And it happened in our lifetime.
Yeah.
It's like
that number was low in 1975, whether it was 136 or 163, that's low, and to see where they're at now is a phenomenal success story.
For sure. And man, it is so fascinating to hear when they first started trapping and transplanting and doing research on these bears. It was the Wild West. They didn't know what they were doing. They didn't know how to do it. Do you ever remember seeing those old Craighead videos of it was the Craighead family, and they were the original ones to do the research on the bears in Yellowstone. It's just the old, almost Gordon Eastman looking stuff of like the big grizzly running into the side of that station wagon when he wakes up. Like he's all confused, and he gets up, and all these guys just start scrambling for this old station wagon, and this bear runs into it full speed, just T-bones it and puts this big dent in the side of the car.
Oh, man.
But the footage they got for back in the day was incredible.
That's what they had to do.
And one of the biologists I was talking to said that he was told that they were basically using PCP to knock these bears out with. And so these bears were like, just whacking them out. And so he's like, you can imagine, you put knock a bear out 30 times on PCP, he's going to do some pretty messed up things.
So they just didn't know any better.
No. But that's where it started, and they kind of led the way, and now they have their dosages down, for being able to get in, get out, do what they need to do. The traps, their systems are all remote, so there's very little human hands-on stuff.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I can't imagine walking up to a bear in one of those traps, the power they possess.
Oh, back in the 70s and 80s, doing that job had to be nuts. Nuts.
Yeah, for sure. So it's a fascinating story, and we're collecting some great stuff. Like I said, Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks has been really a huge help in this. They've been not only helping with interviews and who are the right people to talk to, but just sort of the footage of some of the projects they've done, from trap and transplant to conflict mitigation work, and things like that. So I'm excited. Like I told you, I believe whether you're a hunter, a hiker, somebody that dreams of coming out and hunting in Grizz country, or you do it every day and are a seasoned pro, I think this film will be very fascinating.
Yeah, I can't wait. And a few years ago, weren't we really close to like selling tags in Wyoming? We were like right there, and then it just didn't happen. What happened with that one?
I really believe that was I believe that was the genetic connectivity one. I think it was kind of throttled back until we could prove that.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I was interviewing Jeremiah Smith, he's the grizzly bear conflict specialist for our area. He had sitting behind his desk Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Park hunting regulations that had grizzly bear with that year on it. And I was like,
that's so close.
We were right there.
So
right
close.
There. And the amount of money we could raise for the resource, too, by just a few tags and the applications and being able to help, Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, our state, federal agencies, it would be just a huge boost in income for them.
Oh,
just
man.
For a couple of tags. Because hunters, regardless of what people think, the last thing hunters would want to do would be to put the bears back on the list, too. That would be the last thing we'd want to see. We would want to hunt them in healthy populations like we do everything else.
For more than a century, America's sportsmen and women have led the way in paying for the restoration of wildlife, conserving habitat, and investing in the future of our natural world. This is a legacy built not on what we take ourselves, but on what we give back. That's the nature of conservation, paying it forward for the next generation. This is the reason Mountain Tough is a proud partner of Wild Sheep Foundation, an organization committed to keeping and putting wild sheep on the mountain. If you're not already a member, learn more today at wildsheepfoundation.org. Yeah, and I know you understand that well, but it is not a thing that every American understands well, but the actual like truth of hunting is conservation. For me, the standout story of my life related to that has always been, I grew up in Billings, and going from being not a duck hunter to a duck hunter drastically just changed everything about my perspective of who's actually like managing this wildlife and who actually cares for this wildlife. And so like when I was a young kid in Billings, we were doing a lot of deer hunting, a lot of tree stand deer hunting. Then we started archery hunting in the breaks. But then I got just obsessed with waterfowl hunting for a while. And I was still trying to do all sorts of other kinds of hunting, but I went really deep in waterfowl for a while, which got me involved with Ducks Unlimited. And then you're at the banquets and you're at the meetings and you're at the events and you're seeing like habitat after habitat after habitat after habitat restored. And all of that restoration is done by these hunters that are hunting ducks. And it became so obvious that like you'll only protect something with your life and your finances of your life and the limited amount of time you have with your life if you kind of like intimately know it and if you care for it. And so like no one who is not, very, very few people on earth who have never hunted a duck are going to spend money on protecting a duck. And I was able to kind of like walk that journey out. And then, you know, as I got older, you see it for sure with Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation and Wild Sheep Foundation. And you're just realizing that, wow, like you have to care for something deeply to sacrifice your time and money to protect it. But then B, you have to like intimately know these animals to protect them with your finances and your time. And that's what hunting does. Not only like hunting ducks or hunting elk or hunting sheep, it allows us to be in those environments that they're in those worlds that they're in. And when you're in those worlds that they're in, you start to see these things like, oh wow, there used to be like 1,000 ducks on this pond, but now there's not. I wonder what's going on. I wonder if they're sick. I wonder if there's a problem. Or so you start to really pay attention to their whole ecosystem and their whole habitat. And like hands down, that's the same thing that'll happen with the bear and the grizzly bear. You know, if they come off that list and hunters are able to manage that population through hunting, the same thing will happen where a large group of people will spend their life and their resources and their time just making sure that population is doing well. And, you know, hopefully we're close to that moment.
Yeah. I mean, we're as close as we've ever been, only because there's just getting to be more and more bears by the day.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, when there's value put on the animal, people want to protect it. And, you really see it in those rooms. I mean, I go to all the trade shows, and I tell my partners this all the time. Like, I'll go to Archery Trade Association or something, ATA, or SHOT Show, or something like that, and it's fun. Everybody's there. They're hunters. Everybody gets along. You're getting to see cool products, hearing people's stories, and you know, everybody's kind of from their own walk of life, and then they go home. And when you go to, like, say, the Sheep Foundation, Sheep Show in Reno, you walk away so proud to be a hunter because you see, like you say, on the screen, you see the work that gets done. You hear about what that money's doing to help the resource. And then you get to watch millions of dollars get raised in one weekend, all by hunters, that goes directly back to the resource. I always leave those shows with just a renewed sense of energy to just keep on doing what we're doing. Mm-hmm. Because to your point, there's nobody else out there doing that. And so it's inspiring to be in those rooms in so many levels. It makes you want to be it makes you want to give more. It makes you want to work harder. It makes you want to be a better human. It makes you want to give more time, just all of it. And I love the feeling that gives me of being in those rooms and giving my time, giving my membership money, whatever it may be. It's very rewarding. And I kind of going back to, giving people a piece of advice that are around the country. It's you might not have elk in your area, you might not have wild sheep, but just come to one of the banquets and you'll just be proud to be a hunter. I mean, you look at the amount of people who have actually killed a sheep in that room. It is a small percentage, but man, they are happy to be there. Yeah. And it's for the dream of one day getting the opportunity to hunt sheep. And you don't see other people out there doing it. And so, I think it kind of comes full circle to your question earlier, like, have we done a good job leaving it for our kids? Absolutely. I mean, we're setting record numbers every year at these banquets at the amount of money raised.
Yeah.
And so we're doing a good job. It's just what's gonna happen with that is we're kind of on the edge of seeing,
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of scary. You look at stuff going on in Denver, Oregon. There's constantly a fight of taking hunting rights away to some level.
Yeah, it can vanish in a second without barely even noticing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would just say a little piece of advice, just get involved in some way, because we need all the help we can get. And the feeling of satisfaction and just reward it'll give you internally is worth it alone.
Yeah, and I think to come full circle to it, starting with how can we get our kids involved in the outdoors and making them not just on grand, crazy, epic hunting adventures, but all the small things that they can learn from being with us outside, not only from the survival skills and the bushcraft skills, but, a big one is we need to be teaching them about these conservation models and, taking them under our wing and letting them see Sheep Show and Wild Sheep Foundation and the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, so that they kind of understand, just like we did at one point, wow, like this is how it works. Hunters are actually taking care of all these animals is something that's really important that we're going to have to do for that next generation.
For sure. Yeah, and I think it's kind of the generational thing, our parents wanted us to be better than them, and we want our kids to be better than us, and I think they will be. I see a generation of kids who really care about wildlife, who really care about the environment. They're hunters. They grew up just like us, but they really care about, the world around them. And that's not just my kids. It's just, I see it with kids in general. They're very, and maybe it's just Bozeman where we live. We are kind of a hotbed of sort of conservation-minded thinking people. But you see it a lot in just the questions they ask and how they go about. Like, you don't see, I remember us just doing some stupid things when we were growing up. We just didn't know.
Yeah.
Like doing burnouts with our four-wheelers, like up in the mountains, backcountry, like trying to tear up flowers and stuff. We didn't know. Mm-hmm. And my kids don't do that stuff. They don't think like that because they understand there's an outcome to their actions, and so I think we're doing a good job of not only leaving it better than we found it, but also raising our kids to be just more mindful than we even were on this stuff. Because the older you get, the more you realize that everything we do out there has an effect. Like, we think we're just one hunter out there on the landscape taking one deer a year or one elk or whatever it may be, but that over time on a large scale has can either have a positive effect or a negative effect depending on how it's done.
Yeah, we're all interconnected.
Yeah. So.
Well, Jason, thanks for swinging by. I appreciate it. Yeah, appreciate you jumping on the show, and appreciate your decades of storytelling, and storytelling such a big part of all of this. Like, for people to be able to experience different landscapes and different animals the way they've been able to do that through your films over 20 plus years is incredible. So thanks for doing that and all your work, and for continuing to do that. It's awesome.
Yeah, you bet. I appreciate hearing that. It's fun. I really enjoy what we do.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason.
Yeah, thank you, Dustin. I appreciate it. Place looks great.
Thank you.
You bet.